I know. Yeah.
Back when I used to watch it.
It says we are up there, but I gotta try to chat Matt before we.
You remember Father Guido Sarducci was the weatherman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're all set.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
We'll have Commissioner Harrison lead us in the invocation. Anyone who wishes to join, feel free to do so, and then pledge by Commissioner Freeling.
Please join with me. We gather together here today, intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. Please allow us the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in our lives and joy in our tasks, and also please give us the patience to listen to others, as well as keep in your minds and hearts those of us who are ill with the virus, as well as those in the front lines providing services and care. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Bob. Terry?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Echo. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chickering.
Here.
Curran.
Here.
Freeling.
Here,
Harrison.
Here.
Hugo.
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick.
Here.
Meeks.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Walrack.
Here.
Yarborough.
Present.
Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 present, 0 absent.
Thank you. The minutes from last week need to be approved. Is there a motion to do that?
I'll make that motion, Michael Majerick.
Moved by Majerick. Is there support?
I'll second. Commissioner Hugo.
Commissioner Freeling supports.
Which one?
Pick one.
Pick a number between 1 and 10. Whoever is closer is the one who gets it.
Commissioner Freeling.
Freeling is the support. Okay.
Her picture was up first. Her picture
Will
came
the
up
clerk
first.
please call the roll?
Chickering.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Freeling.
Yes,
Harrison.
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majerick.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Walrack.
Yay.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
Thank you. Do we have communications this week?
Yes, you received an email communication from Kelly Stelter, Berrien County 4-H Program Coordinator, the Berrien County Spotlight 4-H Family News, August 2020 issue, received on August 12th.
Very good, thank you. We'll have an election update now from Clerk Tyler.
Well, I'm glad to announce that as of today, the August election balanced perfectly. Later today, my Board of Canvassers will come in and myself, and we will certify the August election. I want to first also thank all the election workers who worked during the pandemic, the local clerks, my Board of Canvassers, my election administrator, and my county clerks. the Bureau of Election, Election Source, and PSI. You wonder why I thank everybody. We had unbelievable paper jams during that day, and it was due to the humidity. Also, it was also due to the stock of paper that we were using, and with all the AV votes we received. The tabulators are a little bit sensitive to certain inks, and when too much ink gets on the tabulator and they're not cleaned enough, they will jam. And we also learned that by a lot of the AVs, how they were folded also created jams. So we will correct all those issues for November. But one thing I was very blessed with, because of the paper jams and our results coming in late, was that Election Source had brought in additional tabulators, and tabulators, we had 10 replaced because of that. They're brand new, that shouldn't happen, and the humidity played a very strong part in that due to the type and stock of paper, which was approved by the Bureau of Election. Due to that, Election Source and certain municipalities like Benton Township was one of the last to come in on election night, and it was really not election night, it was Wednesday at 6 a.m. We retabulated a lot of all the AVs, which took us a very long time. It took us for the AVs to retabulate, which came out perfectly. It took us 2.5 hours. So that made it drew us down to 6 a.m., but I was glad to have a balance perfect. During the August election, we had 35,716 voters. On the AVs, we had 22,538. In person, we had 13,178 voters, with a total voting 27.68. At the time we had the voting, we had 128,143 registered voters. Yesterday, we had 130,079 qualified voters in the voter file. Just to give you some numbers to kind of look at everything, in 2016 in the primary with the presidential election, we only had 19,737 with a 15.75% amount of voters. So we increased, and there were 125,300 registered voters. So we had, compared to the last presidential election, an additional 15,979 individuals voted. Now to compare what we're looking at, as I told you, we had 35,716 voters in the primary. In the 2016, we had 73,301 voters. Now in 2018, when we had the open governor race, and we also had the marijuana, we thought, petitions, we thought, oh, we had a lot of voters, a lot of people came out, and even knowing we had recounts, people only voted for 1 or 2 items. In that election, we had 63,213 voters with a turnout of 50.4% voters. Now you're sitting there thinking the census and we've got all these registered voters. It is very complicated to remove voters. There are 2 different types of voters within the registers. There's inactive, it's individuals who have not voted for 6 years. It takes 6 years or more to remove them off the registered voter file. Then we have the cancellation ones. We go through a process. It takes 8 years or more to remove them over the voter file. Talking about items, what is different within this election was that the counts of AD counting boards. When you're watching results, you would need to go to the county's website. We had a button on the bottom of the page called election results. If you remember from the past, it used to be Election Magic, which is no longer in business. We currently have 30 municipalities and then with it who have voting locations with additional precincts. that the villages are included in the township. Currently, the Bureau of Elections is encouraging each municipality to get AV counting boards, and they're offering grants right now to the local municipality. In August, we had 11 municipalities who do not have AV counting boards. What the difference is, and we had problems 2 years ago, is that what happens is if you don't have an AV counting board and you have long lines, they stop basically the election and then they process maybe 4 or 5 AV ballots and then they go back. So this eliminates the long voting lines. The other issue is local clerks can determine, like the voting polls open at 7, they may not start their AV counting boards till after lunch. So right now, with as many AV voters we're getting, we really are pushing for those counting boards. If by chance you want to visit one of these AV counting boards, you are sequestered into that AV counting board. Bring your lunch, they'll let you go to the restroom, but make sure you're in there for the long haul. If you leave, you don't get the offer to come back. Also, in November, 2 more of my municipalities, Bertrand Township and Lake Township, will go to an AV counting board. During the election, we had ballot proposals. We had 25 in Berrien County, one where it was for covert schools, which goes into Berrien County, which was 1. So we had 26. We had probably the largest amount of proposals within the state. Out of the 25, 2 failed. They were in New Buffalo Township for a new additional millage, and the second one was for Baroda Township Proposal 5, a renewal for a library service. Also, issues with the tabulators had to do with spoiled ballots, where people would vote maybe Democrat and then cross over and vote for a Republican. We had a lot of that issues going on. We had a lot of write-ins due to precinct delegates. Also, if you were looking at the election results, you'll find that maybe there's some municipalities like Three Oaks Township who doesn't have a supervisor candidate for the election process. A lot of our candidates and individuals are now applying for no party affiliation, not distinguished. So you would only see them on a November ballot and would not see them on an August, only the Republicans and the Democrat candidates. You will also see in the November ballot the schools and the judges and the villages. Also, let me kind of hit a lot right there. Also, since today we are going to be certifying the election, there are 6 calendar days for a recount. So if somebody was interested, like in Galene, we have somebody for running for supervisor. It was close by 3 votes. In the history of me being a clerk for over 7 years, the maximum I found in a recount is maybe 1 or 2. When we did the presidential recount, it only was 4 votes extra. So these tabulators are very precise, even if they paper jam and anything else. The larger your amount of having a recount, if you're 1 or 2, it's a smaller fee. If you are looking at a widespread of 100, you are looking at hundreds of dollars to have that recount. That did change by the legislation. 2 of the biggest issues with the August election with problem areas were due to sign locations and campaign finance. And individuals at this time, unfortunately, some people don't file their campaign finance reports unless you file for a waiver. The fees are hefted by the state of Michigan. So if you decide you're probably better off doing a waiver, if you're not going to spend over $1,000, but if you didn't, get the reports to me, because otherwise you'll be writing a check. Dates to remember. October 23rd at 4 p.m. is the last day to file for a no party affiliation write-in candidate. So if you think you're a candidate-elect, you are not a candidate-elect yet. So we still have that chance, and people are calling to still be a write-in. So I would recommend you stay away from the word candidate-elect at this time, because we're getting a lot of calls on that. Let me see if I missed anything. Things to know on November 3rd. Because there are write-ins on the no party affiliation, and if you were going to run for a no party affiliation write-in, you don't have to gather petitions. But the things in to know who the write-ins in, if it's a local election, you go to your local clerks to find out who it is. If it's a state and federal election, you have to go to the Bureau of Election. If it's a county seat or a school, you go to the county clerk. I cannot give out that information on other certain candidates. The election workers cannot give you the information who are those write-ins. So if you decide you want to be a write-in, you better mark it yourself hefty, and don't bring stickers to add to the tabulator so that we don't have additional issues. The other one thing I want to mention to individuals who did run in the primary, who run in November, I would recommend that after you're done running, or if you decide you're not going to run anymore, or if you lost, close out that campaign finance. I hate to send out letters for fines. It's better to clean it up and not have it hanging out there. If by chance you decide to pursue a higher seat, you can still keep your statement of organization. That's it for my report.
Thanks, Sharon. Any questions for Sharon?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yarbrough, this is Commissioner Mamie Yarbrough. Hello, and thank you for all that you do. And thank you for this explanation, because that's what people said. They don't want me to vote. The machine is jamming up. I said, don't leave. Don't leave until you vote. But what I wanted to ask you, you gave a different, you paid people a different amount. I don't know what they're called, but the ones in charge of the election, the chairman and the people that actually accept your things, you paid them a higher amount?
I'm not sure if I understand.
Well,
Another
they received $20 an hour, and the other ones received $16 an hour.
Oh, on a recount?
No,
Calls or what?
on the regular workers, poll workers.
Oh, each, on the election workers, they're determined on the cost by each local unit of government. So
Oh.
I don't have control over what election workers are paid. On election workers, we're always looking for responsible, respectful election workers. On a whole, we did pretty good on that, but in some parts, unfortunately, some election workers didn't even tell their local clerk and never showed up.
Right.
So that was very sad, and the state has been doing a good job also in recruiting additional election workers, but I only have the cost for the Board of Canvassers, so I would not know on the election workers.
Okay. Well, someone told me they got a check and they thought it was a mistake because it was more. They were real pleased. Whatever.
I think probably because of the pandemic, our local clerks, I laud them immensely. They had to make so many precautions. A lot of that came out of their own local unit funds or even their own personal accounts. I think they paid more because there was less people who were willing to work during this pandemic than usual. So some of them may have increased that to assure that they had workers that day.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for the clerk? If not, we'll pause for public comments regarding resolutions that are on the agenda.
So you actually have 19 people watching right now, and I reached out a couple of times to ask if there were any public comments about the resolutions that would be voted on today, and we do not have any public comments about the resolutions.
All right, well, we'll wait a little longer just in case. We'll pause for a commercial break. anything show up?
No, I'm getting stuff for general public comments, but nothing for the resolutions.
Okay. All right. We received an email string last night about the resolution ending in 8314, and that had to do with whether the grant for hiring new people at the health department would include some of the incidental costs of hiring people, desks, chairs, computers, cubicle dividers, office space. Did everyone see and read that email?
Yes, I did.
Yep.
Is there anyone who did not? All right then, does anyone have any questions about 8314 before we proceed and perhaps consider a resolution to approve the consent calendar without exception?
Are you going to move the added resolution up?
And the added resolution ending in 8319 is part of this discussion. Nikki, are you with us? Can you see and hear what's going on?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Do you have anything to add?
No, I hope that we've addressed all questions and concerns through the information that the county administrator sent out, but I'm happy to address anything further if there are still outstanding questions or concerns.
Do you have anything?
I think that to the board, there's been a variety of questions that between myself, Nikki, and Shelley, we've been fielding over the last week. Proceeding with the consent calendar on all items minus that resolution may be wise, just to allow the board an opportunity to ask more questions.
All right. We'll just, for the sake of erring on the side of caution, if there's no objection, I'm going to pull 8314, and we'll deal with the consent calendar, including 8319, and then we'll circle back and do 8314. Is that okay?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I was thinking about this, and 8314, maybe you should pull 8313, because 8313 is the funding for 8314, and have those two to go together as standalones.
All right, that's fine. Well, 8313 and 8314 are being held off to the side. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Mamie Yarbrough, would you tell me what 8319 is?
It's the agreement with MITRE Corporation for the SARA alert software and program for the health department. Annette sent an email out about that yesterday and mentioned that there had been active dialogue with corporate counsel, tweaking this to make sure that everything was in order. I had also been given the courtesy to see that paper trail and commend everyone for their efforts on that. Here again, everyone should have received that email. If anyone did not receive it, now would be a good time to say so. And if anyone has not read it, this would also be a good time to say so. Silence is deemed to mean you saw it and read it. Does that answer your question, Mamie?
Yes, I wanted to know, I don't have those in front of me. I've looked at everything, but I don't, remember.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Nikki, since you're here, why don't you fill in the board on that 8319 resolution, what it's about, just in case.
Sure. So as you're all aware that we, per the public health code, are required to do case investigation and contact tracing on all COVID-19 cases. This is similar to other reportable diseases in the state of Michigan that we do investigation and follow up on to protect the public's health. So right now with the volume of of people and investigations that we're conducting because of COVID cases, as well as this contact tracing element of it, and tracking all of our contacts with all of those people who are quarantined. We need some sort of technological product that helps us streamline and make those communications and that information tracking more efficient. There is a state database for all reportable diseases. However, that's where we put the primary information about a particular case, and we are able to store that data there. However, it does not provide a place to do and to track our daily contacts that we have with these individuals who we're following through their isolation and quarantine period. We've been using a mix of Excel spreadsheets and hand tracking lists on pieces of paper to make sure everyone is getting the phone calls and the text messages that they need to ensure compliance with isolation and quarantine. So what the Sarah Alert system is, it's something that has been sponsored and kind of, or I don't know if sponsored is the right word, but it has been endorsed and put out there and used by the CDC and many other municipalities across the country. It is a database that allows us to track our contacts and how we're interfacing with individuals in a more efficient manner than what we're currently able to do. And we desperately need efficiencies in that system to try to streamline those activities. There is also a mechanism for sending some automated email or text messages to individuals if that's how they would choose to be communicated with from us. There are some instances where we're following folks on quarantine who are not experiencing symptoms, and having a daily text message that they just respond to that says, yes, I'm feeling okay today, would be most efficient for both them and our staff. So this is a free system to use. It is out there for this purpose, for the public good, to be able to do this. So it does not cost any money. And we have done some product demos. We have worked with our IS department about what implementation would take and make sure it meets all of the network criteria and all of that. We've done our due diligence on this product, and I really think it's going to help alleviate some of the added burden of manually tracking this process for our staff.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about that overview?
This is Commissioner Scott. Nikki, getting back to the whereas there's no cost for this product and services. However, they do require a data use agreement governs the access and the use of this data. Who has access and use of the data?
So we have access to the data, and it is our data in terms of whoever owns this, that MITRE Corporation. They do have servers and information is there. I believe the way the contract is written and has been approved by our corporate counsel, we retain ownership of that data, and MITRE Corporation has taken all of the appropriate safeguards in place that would be necessary with HIPAA protected information on their servers. But this is very similar to electronic medical records and how that is that it's our information, but there is a vendor that is providing us a service and a way to organize that information.
Right, and that was my question. Does a third party have access to our information and be able to use that information as they see fit?
No, they do not have the ability to use that data in any way that they see fit. They're there to store it for us per the agreement and maintain all the compliance.
Thank you very much.
Ezra, my read on that is that it's, by analogy, like a record custodian for the various electronic medical record storage systems in use in the country. The ownership of those records is still with ultimately some of those are owned by the patient. And the hospital is a custodian, but then their electronic vendor also is a custodian, and there is a fairly robust set of regulations that make it clear that being a records custodian is just that. You don't have any right to access, you don't have any ownership of it. And I believe that is how this document was structured, and Judge Dwayne could confirm that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that question because as an individual, I'm always leery of third-party access to any records at all, especially from Berrien County. My personal feeling is I would much rather have a computer program that is fully owned and controlled by the county. That was my only.
Understood. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Freeling. I
Yes.
wonder if Nick could help me to understand, how is this software different than the other software that we approved a couple weeks ago for contact tracing?
So the software that was approved in July is not for contact tracing. That is a mechanism for businesses or other types of workplaces to voluntarily report symptoms in their workplace. So it does not have any personal health information, protected health information. It is not any type of surveillance system. We're not following up with individual people as part of it. It is a way to capture a snapshot. So it is not at all related to the process of contact tracing or case investigation.
Okay, thank you.
I have
We
a
good, Nick?
question.
Yes, sir.
Reading the positions in the in some of the sheets, it didn't state how long these positions are going to be in place. Is it say?
Michael, could you hold that question until we get to those resolutions, because we pulled 13 and 14.
Okay,
from
oh
the
yeah, I
consent
forgot.
calendar,
Okay,
And then we'll queue you up first once we get to that, but we want to get through the consent calendar and then move on to 13 and 14.
So, Mr. Chairman, John Hinkleman,
Yes, sir.
is where we're at right now, is the contact tracing resolution in the consent calendar at this time?
No.
No.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, it's not at this point in time. Okay.
8319.
Well, wait a minute, the contract,
Contact tracing.
the added resolution
Is 319.
is for the software. Did you want to pull that one also, John?
Well, I just want to make it very clear that I'm not in favor of contact tracing. I think this is a dangerous road, no matter who uses the data. And so I just want to make sure that that's voted on, that's voted on separately. If we need to pull that,
All right.
then make that happen, then that's fine too.
Okay, all right, so we're pulling 13, 14, and 19. And then those can be addressed specifically, individually, once we get the consent calendar done.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar accepting 13, 14, and 19?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Curran. I'll make that motion.
Moved by Curran, is there
Yes,
support?
make support.
Support by Meeks. Any further discussion on those consent calendar resolutions, that is? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Curran,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hugo,
Yes.
Hinkleman,
Yes.
Majerick,
yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ballram,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
thank you. Let's address the added resolution 19 first, and then I think we could logically do 13 and 14 together, because they are, one is funding And then the other delineates the complement changes that funding would enable. So dealing with 19, John, you've got the floor.
For me, no, I'm just, I'm just like everyone to personally know that I'm not in favor of the contact tracing, the idea, the concept behind it, and what it may or may not violate as we move forward. So I'm good with whatever the board does, but me personally, I'm not in favor of the contact tracing, so I will be voting no for contact tracing.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other comments on 19? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Did we have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion and a second. Little detail there.
This is Commissioner Harrison. I'll move approval of the resolution ending in 8319.
Thank you. Is there support?
Commissioner Hugo supports.
Supported by Hugo. And I was just testing the clerk to see if she was paying attention. That's why I did that.
She thought you did.
Yes. Now, will the clerk please call the roll?
Freeling.
No.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
No.
Majerick.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
No.
Walrath.
Yes.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Chickering.
Yes.
Curran.
Unmute, Jim.
Jim, are you muted?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I vote yes.
Curran.
Yes.
You said yes?
He said yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 yeas and 3 nays.
Thank you. Now we'll move to 8313 and 8314, and if it's all right, we'll talk about those as a pair, and I think we could vote on them as a pair when we're ready to vote.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
questions? Yes, sir.
point of information. They're really not tied together. Accepting the funds is one step. The other resolution is how they would propose to spend the money. If the resolution to hire people permanently does not pass, they still want to get the money.
Okay, very good. Good point. Well, let's talk about 13 first, because no Buck Rogers. Who wants to talk about 13?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I'll tie bar this kind of together with 14, even though we're discussing 13. I happen to agree also with Commissioner Hinkleman on the no to contact tracing. And the reason being is if you look at 13, it shows a total of $850,550 for contact tracing coordination. The COVID infection prevention is only 90,000. So I agree with Commissioner Chickering that in essence, well, I shouldn't say that. This 13 is funding 14 because all of those positions, except for $90,000, are for contact tracing. I have been a firm believer in not to do contact tracing. I'm not in favor of it at all. I think we've discussed that with these other companies that we've hired, that the board has hired to do that. I think that that needs to be really looked at on what rabbit hole that we're going to go down. And that's all I have to say. I'm against that. The positions are another thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Yeah, Commissioner, I have a question for either you, Brian, or Nikki. I don't want to get confused between contact tracing and surveillance. They are two separate issues, correct?
So,
Nikki?
yeah, so the term surveillance is used to describe the epidemiological process of tracking disease in a community. So I know that there are a lot of other more sinister connotations with the word surveillance. And so it's unfortunate that that is the technical term in the field of public health, but that is the jargon term. So a surveillance system sets up a way to report the diseases. This is one way to do a surveillance system. There are certain infectious diseases that are by law reportable in the state of Michigan. Every time it is diagnosed, it has to be reported through what we call our Michigan disease surveillance system. So that way we know how many instances of all of these diseases are happening. Now, oftentimes we have to know who the person is so that we can talk with that individual to get more information so that we have an understanding. This is how we know what the Lyme disease numbers are in Berrien County. This is how we know about and potentially identify foodborne outbreaks. This is pretty routine stuff that public health has been doing for 50 plus years in this country. So that's what surveillance is. Contact tracing is a part of in communicable disease, infectious disease investigations, and this is how we help protect the public. Contact tracing refers to the process of reaching out to people who may have been exposed. We do this with HIV, we do this with chlamydia and gonorrhea, we do it with certain other infectious diseases that have a person-to-person spread component. So what that does is we call an individual and we say, hey, we have reason to believe you might have been exposed here, or you might have been exposed to disease. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on in terms of your symptoms, in terms of your health, in terms of some of these other things? The process of contact tracing does respect the confidentiality of the person who has the reported disease. But this method of contact tracing is, in fact, infection prevention. Because if we can't let somebody know that they might be ill during their infectious period, but before their symptoms start, they can't take the appropriate precautions to not infect the people in their life. So this is something that is routinely done in public health for other conditions. We're applying that same science and that same best practice to COVID-19 control and really protecting the public. I believe that the majority of our residents would want to know if they had a potential exposure so they could act appropriately to be on the lookout for signs for themselves, but then also try to prevent that transmission to their loved ones if that was a possibility. In the Michigan Public Health Code, local health departments are required, we're authorized and compelled to complete these types of activities. We obviously do it in a way that protects all the confidentiality, is very respectful of people's information. We're not careless about that. We do not divulge things, but these are the methods that are used to control infectious diseases in a population.
May I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so really surveillance and contact tracing you've been doing all along. But because of the COVID disease and because of the numbers, you need to expand that, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second half of what you said.
Okay, but the contact tracing and the surveillance, you've been doing it all along. But because of the COVID-19 and because of the sheer numbers is why you've had to expand that, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, now I understand that if someone tests positive for disease, that person's information is, and I guess put it in the phrase that it's put into your database.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say with the COVID-19, I test positive and I tell you 10 people that I have had contact with. Did those 10 people go into your database, or are they just merely contacted and not tracked?
They are listed and we are required to put them in the case investigation form that is part of the Michigan Disease Surveillance System. So they are listed in there as contacts. And then there's another mechanism, which right now has been basically manual for our department, through which we check off and monitor and are able to track how we are doing in terms of contacting those people. Because when somebody may be a contact, they usually need to go into isolation or quarantine. Not always, it depends. Just because somebody says you were a close contact doesn't mean you actually meet that criteria. So sometimes talking to that other person can help us suss that out better. But there may be a need for additional testing. There may be a need for connection to healthcare. So we need a way to make sure that we are tracking our efforts, that we're not letting people slip through the cracks, and so that we're doing that work thoroughly and with high quality.
Okay, I need to ask a follow-up question on that then. Let's say I am listed as a contact for an, and you get a hold of me and I say, no, I've never been in contact with that person. Do I still go into that database even though I said I have not had contact with them and I don't deserve to be in the database?
So because we typically do not reveal the name, you might know who, you might have an idea of who it is that we might be calling about, but we're not going to say, Jim Curran, you were exposed to Nikki Britton, and she says that you were around her. Is this true? We say, Jim, we have reason to believe that you might have been exposed. And if there's a certain location, we might ask you about the location. There's some different ways, and it's a variety of different scenarios in which this might come up. Once somebody has said, this is who my contact and who I've been around, there's not really a process for removing them because that's information that came up in our investigation. We can't go back. In our notes, we might go back and say, this person was not actually a close contact based on the further conversation we have. But as part of being, this is part of a health record and a public health investigation. So we can build on it and say what more we've learned. We don't remove from it.
So if I test positive and I give you 10 names and 9 of those names are people I just don't like, they're in the database.
We have documentation that that's what you told us who those individuals were. Yes.
But now those individuals are in your database.
They're in your investigation form because you listed them as contacts.
Okay, thank you.
Nikki, this is Commissioner Scott. I'm going to expound on what Commissioner Curran was saying. I believe some of this is, some of this has to do with executive orders that the governor has given. And I think the thing that's concerning to me, and I've heard a lot about this from the constituents in my district, is enforcement. And you really haven't even discussed that yet. What about the enforcement of the contact tracing? Because like Jim said, what if these people, and Jim says all of these people he's been in contact with, and they're saying, no, we haven't. What is the health department's job on enforcement? And I think that's the problem that I'm having with contact tracing, is the enforcement part. Where does that work into this whole scenario?
So enforcement, especially how that's worded in this resolution and in the potential uses of this funding, the enforcement has to do more with compliance with executive orders of workplaces, places of amusement, some of those sorts of places. We're talking about restaurants, our businesses and workplaces complying with what's happening, our mass gatherings that are not allowable happening. We receive a lot of questions and inquiries because the vast majority of people want to do things the right way and they want to understand the rules, and the rules are changing frequently, and they want to know what to do to keep their people safe and to follow the rules. I strongly believe that's what most people are going for. So when we're talking about using that funding for enforcement, it's more about how, in line with how we do all of our other regulatory activities, we always come at enforcement from a very education-based approach of making sure everyone understands the rules, understand what it takes to follow the rules, make sure that they know how to access what it takes, respond to a lot of those questions, provide that technical assistance. It has to be pretty egregious and go pretty far down the road for there to be true enforcement where there's a levying of fines. But that is something that's out there. Enforcement in these terms don't, to me, it doesn't line up with this whole contact tracing process. That is a separate process. Even with the case investigation and the contact tracing, we always get the best when we are in partnership with people. We are doing this to protect the public's health. We are doing it to keep our communities safe and healthy and to identify risks and help people mitigate their risks. So when we are doing case investigation, that's the posture that we have. When we're doing contact tracing, that is the posture we have. Nobody wants to get their loved one sick. Everybody, almost everybody knows somebody who is vulnerable to COVID-19. People want to try to do what is best and the right thing. So in terms of enforcement, there are ways outside of anything the governor has done in the public health code that does give health officers the authority, and we pretty much never have to reach for this, but there is the authority that if somebody really is being very dangerous in how they are not isolating and being very kind of flippant about it and very egregious in their breaking of isolation, I do, as health officer, have the legal authority under the Michigan Public Health Code to legally compel them to be isolated. Never want to go for that tool. We haven't had a situation in this county in, I think, ever that we've had to do that. Across the state, there's no other health officers are not doing this because it hasn't been warranted. And that is never, ever even early in the toolbox of what we use to try to help maintain control of the epidemic. And it has to represent a very significant risk. So there is nothing that, that's, I hear what you're saying, but that's not how this marries with contact tracing.
Thank you.
Nikki, this is Commissioner Harrison. Are you aware of any of the local health departments that are not involved in contact tracing?
No, we are compelled by the Michigan Public Health Code to conduct these activities.
Nikki, question, other than someone who's affected with the virus and using their word basically on who they've been in touch with, are there other tools in your toolbox that this grant allows you, i.e. with people's cell phone, to find out who they've been in close proximity to and to try to utilize the data from that GPS and that cell phone is that available to you as a tool?
No, we're still tracking who we've called on paper. We don't have access to the type of technology to be tracking people's cell phones. It appears to exist because we all see news articles about research studies that have used that data at the aggregate level. That is not something that we have access to.
So we're back to Commissioner Curran's comment then that you're relying on basically the word of the person that has been who they've been in contact with, the person that's infected.
That is where we use as a starting point, but there are also times where it's possible that we might call an employer to try to see who was in what building at what time. With schools starting, schools are keeping track of just what students are in what room and who they sit by or who they sit by on the bus, so that if we have to do any amount of investigation or tracing within schools, the schools have an idea of who students are generally around to assist with that, so that we can more readily identify children who may have been exposed. So there are definitely other tools in the toolbox. There's some other ways to try to identify folks. And it is not a broadcast of, hey, Nikki Britton has been infected. What do you know about who was around her? And we are looking at very concrete time periods when we know the person was infectious.
Any other questions?
This is Michael Majerick. This is not a question. I personally am in favor of this because I don't know of anybody that I have met that has COVID-19. And I have parents that are in their 90s, and I would like to know when somebody has had contact with me that I didn't know had it. And just so I stay away from my parents. So I think this is a valuable tool. And it's also another tool. I don't think isolation has worked. I'm not 100% sure about masks, but this is another tool in our toolbox that we can use to stifle this epidemic and slow it down, because we're not winning, but we can move forward. And this is, if it doesn't work, well, then we'll know. And if it does work, that's great. So I just want to say, I think it's a huge move forward.
Maybe
Yes, ma'am.
yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. Nikki, how will you put this information out about these jobs? I need to know clearly, how can I make people know about this? We talk about people not getting jobs, not being able to work in Berrien County, not having of races. I want to make our community and whoever else I tell, how do you apply for the jobs?
So all health department postings, and if approved, these would follow the same pattern. All health department postings are posted on the Berrien County website, so berriencounty.org/employment. I believe the application is there and it gets submitted to the health department when going that way. We frequently do advertise our jobs on Indeed.com as well, because we feel like Indeed.com, that has a better reach, and there's a lot of job seekers locally there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just so you know, Mac, I'm sorry, I'm showing something going on technically, I don't know what, and so if we lose everybody, we're gonna have them come back in. It appears as though I'm not connected anymore, but we're trying to figure that out.
Folks, we're encountering some technical difficulties here. And it means that we might lose everyone and have to bring everyone back in. Not sure yet. Are you able to hear me clearly right now?
Yes.
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 Annette is.
All right. Okay. Well, let's see if we can conclude 8313. If we get disconnected, we'll just come back on. Or any other comments on 8313?
I have a question, Commissioner Meeks.
Yes, sir.
Are we voting on the permanent jobs or just the jobs, period?
That 8314 is the hiring of new people.
Okay, all right. Well,
8313 is the
Mr.
money.
Chairman, I'm kind of lost, but I'm trying to follow the process. Okay, then I can wait till you discuss that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we move P 2008313 forward and move the discussion on 8314.
Okay, before we do, Don, are you clear that 8313, which is what we will be voting on, has to do with accepting the grant funding?
Yes, I am. I'm kind of in the left field, but I'm kind of got caught up now. Yes, I'm okay with that, Mr. Chairman.
The next one, 8314, would deal with approving a complement change for our health department to bring some more people in, new employees.
And my
So we
motion,
need a second. We need a second to the motion.
This is Commissioner Harrison. I second the motion.
And moved by Kern, supported by Harrison. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Harrison,
Yes.
Hugo,
Yes.
Hinkleman,
No,
Legere,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
No.
Walrath,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes,
Curran,
Yes.
Freeland,
Yes,
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 2 nays.
All right, very good. Now, 8314, Michael, you had a question that we held in abeyance a little while ago. Do you still have that question?
Well, just, I'm unclear on the length of positions. Adding 9, is this forever, or is this just for a year or 2 or 3, or until funding ends? I'm just very unclear on that. I don't understand it.
Well, as I read the document, and Nikki, correct me if my recollection is off, this is a 30-month funding cycle, at least as it's contemplated right now. And bear in mind, the state works off a funding year that's different than ours. They have a financial year of October 1 to September 30, where we do calendar year for our budgeting. And the enabling resolution indicates that regardless of whether these positions would be collective bargaining positions, they would be subject to the continuation of funding. If the funding goes away, the positions would go away as well, unless we as a board elected to reinstate funding for those positions as general fund full-time positions rather than grant-funded positions. Now, that's my recollection. If I misstated anything, somebody tell me.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Michael, does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns about 8314?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now, and it's a good discussion because it may be a preliminary discussion to employment treatment within the county as we get into budgets. I am convinced that this is the right thing to do for our residents because Nikki and her team need absolutely top-notch people. And they, the professionals here, are convinced that they can get those people as permanent positions, albeit permanently funded only. And because of that, and because of the problems with trying to juggle people under the temporary 1,000-hour per year standard that we must abide by, I think using these positions permanently is absolutely the best thing to do.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I intend to support this resolution. But part of the reason is because I've asked a number of questions of Nikki and of Brian, and as far as the answers to those questions, I was quite satisfied. But what I would like to suggest is maybe either through a workshop or through the county administrator, we as a board get a little bit more brought up to speed on this practice. I think this is a practice that the board is not familiar with, and maybe we need more information going forward. But I do not intend to vote no, hold up the resolution for something that the health department has been doing all along. But I think it would help if I had more information. So going forward.
Jim, I'm sorry, we're getting about every third word now.
Yep.
You want me to repeat it?
Just that last about more information, blank, blank, blank. What?
No, basically what I said is this appears to be a practice that the health department has been doing that the Board of Commissioners is not familiar with.
Huh.
And I intend to support the resolution to move this forward. But I would like to either through the county administrator or through a workshop, be brought up to speed a little bit more technical on this practice. I think that would help because I think it's a practice that we're not familiar with. And I also have some questions, and I think that's why more information going forward would be very helpful.
Good.
Sorry.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Yes,
Scott,
sir.
going over the resolution, and I know I'm beating this dead horse, but it has me very concerned that 2 FTEs are grade 7 union, 3 FTEs are grade 8 union. So 5 of the 9 are union and then would become subject to the union bargaining agreement. And due to the fact that they're going to be employed long enough then to become part of the union, then that's going to be a negotiated issue. I understand that be it further resolved that these positions will be subject to elimination if funding is no longer available to support it. I think there isn't a commissioner that, not one of us 12, that realize what we went through with some of the other state programs, such as indigent defense, where it was cut severely, and now this is coming out of our own money, out of county taxpayer dollars. And I guess some of the things that I have, like the communication specialist, 1 FTE, we already have a communications person there. I just personally think that in these times with COVID, and I know this may sound like a cliche, but it seems that everybody is blaming COVID, from your Amazon packages getting in on time to whatever. And now we should be really tightening our belts because of the possibility of a revenue loss that I fully expect. And instead we're growing. So how are we going to grow in one department, but then yet tell the other departments in the county, such as the sheriff or the prosecutor, indigent defense, or anybody else, that we have to have a net zero increase on budget? The county's health department budget gets to go up. What makes these positions so much more important than Sheriff Bailey wanting to add people? I mean, I see this as a snowball starting to start at the top of the hill, rolling down, and it's something that we're going to have to deal with at some point in time. That's my only comment.
And may I speak, please, Commissioner Yarborough?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That resolution ending in 13 gives us the money to be able to do this. It's necessary. And I don't know if these are federal dollars down to the state of Michigan, to the health department. And I tell people, and this is what I see and believe, that the majority of the operations that the health department does are based on grants and dollars that come. That's why we say our budget is approximately, because we have that second budget that is grants and, you know, different things like that. And so the money is there. And the understanding is, we've asked this a million times, is that if the money runs out, the jobs run out. It's not, can't be used anywhere else, but other than what is specified in that resolution ending in 13. And so I'm fine and feel safe. And the money being taken from indigent defense, I don't know what that is. We have not discussed that. I want to know about that at a later date soon. So let's just deal with the health department, and it says it's $900-something thousand there. And we need to have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Commissioner Freeland. So for this resolution ending in 314, I had questions with regards to the idea of temporary or supplemental versus contract. I respect and hear what Commissioner Chickering is saying with regards to attracting talent. I think in the past when we have had discussions like this for other departments, we have tried to take a more cautious approach and started with temporary, knowing that those positions could potentially move into full-time if needed. When I do the calculations of 1,000 hours for this fiscal year, which my understanding would be that it would be based on our calendar year for Berrien County, that would give us 25 weeks at 40 hours a week for individuals to be able to work. I'm hearing more talk. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
So, you know, that's part of where my reservation comes in at. I don't want to discount what the health department is doing and the work that they are doing. This is something we've never seen in our lifetime, but there are a lot of moving parts, and I just want to make certain moving forward that we continue to keep Berrien County in the best position that it can be. And so for that reason, I don't think I can support a full-time complement change for this. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So if I may, could I address,
Hold
that?
Hold on. Any other board members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Meeks, I can't agree with Commissioner Freeling at this point with the 25 and another 25, that's 50 weeks. That's almost a year. But what do we do when we don't have no money? We're gonna have to get down to a point, let's spend what we got. I look at spending what we got, rather than making something permanent. So my idea is that they need a job, let's create the job for what we got. We don't know what was coming. I know one thing, we're gonna be short in revenue. It's gonna happen. So now let's spend what we got. We don't know what we're gonna have. So now, and that's my comment right there. So, thank you.
Any other board members? I'm going to weigh in now. And Nikki, if you have anything you'd like to say when I'm done, I'll recognize you. Initially, I was favorably disposed towards going with temporary hires or independent contractors or a combination. And in addressing that or looking into that, it became apparent that the level of technical expertise needed would not lend itself well to someone who was hired as a temp. And scheduling issues also come up with temps, especially if you're telling someone that they're going to need to work on a Sunday. Where if you have a full-time employee, you have a greater measure of operational control over that person's time. An independent contractor, there are situations where that would work. Again, the technical expertise requirement would concern me with an independent contractor. Also concerned about how tight the IRS is when it defines what an independent contractor is. And an independent contractor can set his or her own hours, generally provides their own tools, so to speak. They're looking at a job that's fixed, a project, get it done, and then they move on. The 30-month duration is not something that would be consistent with independent contractor status, as I read the regulations that the IRS has put out on how you distinguish an employee from an independent contractor. So based on those factors, I concluded that we will need full-time employees. I recognize and agree with what Commissioner Chickering said along those lines. Another thing that compels me is we have folks who have been working 6, sometimes 7 days a week now for upwards of 4 months, maybe 5 months. Some people who literally aren't taking a day off, some who might take one. The significant potential for burnout has gone beyond potential. People are having issues with being unable to disengage from work for a little while and recharge and refresh. These 9 individuals will address that concern. Collective bargaining, I don't see that as having any impact because there are other places where we've had grant-funded positions and we've made it clear from the time those positions were enabled and authorized that if the money goes away, the position goes away. A collective bargaining agreement does not save that position from being eliminated because of the funding source being eliminated. They don't automatically become a general fund obligation. Here again, we could choose to do that with one or more of these folks, but we don't have to, and there's no legal obligation. A union could not make us do that if we did not wish to. It would entirely be at our discretion. Indigent defense, to my knowledge, has not been cut at this point. There are rumors that that is going to happen in 2021 because of all the counties that we discussed the other day. All the counties have climbed on board and they're swamping the boat. There are so many counties now putting in funding requests that the state surely is not going to be able to meet those at 100% levels. So I would anticipate we're going to see something happen along those lines, and we'll have to deal with it because when we did the enabling resolution, it was stated if the state cuts the money, the positions are at risk of being eliminated. So those are my thoughts, and I'll open it back up if anyone else has any, but first I'd like to hear from Nikki.
I just wanted to address or make the commission fully aware that we have slow walked into this process with temporary supplemental employees. So we did start recruiting for 5 temporary positions in June. We have brought, I think, 3 on board at this point in time. We have had a little bit of a challenge. We found people who are interested in contact tracing, and they either want to, or case investigation, they either want to pop in for a very short period of time, or they're looking for more of a longer term commitment for a job, neither of which are super helpful for us right now. So we have slow walked into this. We do have temporary supplemental staff that are assisting right now. We continue to see that need for more, and hence the request. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of where we are in that process.
All right, thanks, Nikki. Anyone else have anything on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move the motion.
Is that you, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Chickering. Is there support?
Okay, Commissioner Harrison supports it.
Who? Harrison? Okay, moved by Chickering, supported by Harrison. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hugel,
Yes.
Engelmann,
No.
Legere,
Yes.
Meeks,
No.
Scott,
No.
Walrath,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Freeling,
No.
Harrison,
Yes.
Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeas and 4 nays.
Thank you. That concludes our resolutions. Nikki, I don't know of any reason that you need to stick around. You're welcome to continue observing, but if you've got other things to do, that's fine.
Thank you all.
And
Thank
thank you, Nikki.
Finance Committee, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mamie Yarbrough, we had our meeting this morning at 9 a.m. I'd like to let you know, staff that was there with administrative, Annette, Stephanie, Carlton, Jake, what's his name? Lath? I forgot his last name. Lideker. Jake Lideker from Finance, Carrie Bennett from the Road Department, and Brian Bailey from the Parks Department. And one of the, we accepted our minutes from August 6th. And then Brian Bailey, Director of Parks, talked to us because he wanted to spend some donated money that they have. Some of the money came from a bike ride that they had in October of 2019. And then some was half, he received a $10,000 gift from a family that has been donating to Love Creek for quite some time. And he had spent about $5,000 of it. And he wanted to use this money to replace some cross-country skis that are at Love Creek. It's been about 2010 since we purchased any cross-country skis. We rent them when people come, and they're used quite well. We haven't had much snow in the last couple of years, but the straps are breaking, the boots are cracked, and so it is time that they be replaced. And so he wanted to discuss with us. This is not any basic money or any money from the parks, but he would like to be able to use this money to show the gifters, I don't know what the word is, the people that gave it, that it's being used, and that'll be some way to let people know. And then with the used skis, the skis that are being replaced, he was had mentioned a number of ways to get rid of them, possibly an online auction, possibly an auction or sale right at Love Creek, as people would come during that time of year. And then it was suggested by Commissioner Scott that perhaps they could be given to a school, or as I was listening to it, thinking some children's organization where there could be kids exposed to cross-country skiing that never thought about it or even knew about it. Will be like the bobsledders from Jamaica or something like that. So we agreed that, go ahead and order the skis. You need to do that so that they'll be here on time for our weather that we need. Then the next bid we had put out some requests for proposals, and Jake Lideker from Finance came to open them. And one of the ones we had was for the bid opening for the Road Department. To removal of trees. And this is for like a year or however long, I guess it lasts, bid. It wasn't for a specific, but as trees fall down or need to be taken out or whatever, we'll have a company that would be called and come in and do it. Bids were sent out to 8 companies, and we received 3 from those 8 we sent out, and then we received 1 more from somebody that must have read it online. So I want to let you know that they were bid in 2 sections, and there was a place called Tree Works. Do you want me to read each of these, or just say we got the 4 bids? We gave them, we have a motion that we make, and we give them back to the Road Department for them to look at them and to choose the lowest bid if it fits the quality of work and whatever is needed, or come back to the Finance Committee, to the Administrator and the Finance Committee if need be. Is that sufficient?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any questions of finance?
I'm not through.
Oh, well, maybe someone might have a question partway, but we'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay. There was one more bid opening, and it was with it was to tuck point and do some things at the Niles Court. And so we had two bids. One of the bids, the owner, Schimbarger, was present there in the room. And the other bidder was, we received two bids, sent out 3 and 2 responded. One was Schimbarger and the asphalt, and the other company was called, oh, I lost it.
Aren't.
And Arndt Asphalt bid it $104,000. And Schimbarger Asphalt bid it $104,000. No, 10,000, oh, look at me, I'm looking at my numbers, 10,400. Schimbarger Asphalt bid it $10,400. Arndt Asphalt bid it $10,400. So we've not had that before, that it was a tied up bid. And so again, we sent it back to the department for them to choose the best or whatever. And then we have let them figure out a way to decide which one would receive it if they're both equal, by a flip of a coin, by a bet, by a, maybe by the date or whatever. And so those are done. And then there was a bit of concern and a suggestion from Administrator Doucette is that during our time of not having persons at our meetings, that in the RFP, we will ask that the people that are doing the bid, should they want to be involved and listen, that they listen over YouTube, as long as we're doing the virtual meetings. And we believe that is a way to be fair with all. You know, some didn't know they could come in and some did. And so that's what we're going to add to our request for proposal. Is that it? Oh, next week, we're going to do something with Chris Swihart, because we had the power has been out, and so that did not allow him to look at all the things that he needed to. Therefore, we'll have a finance committee meeting at 9 a.m. I believe that's it. Any other things, committee? Thank you.
We have had bids be the same. It's very rare. Last time it happened, I think it was an easier matter to resolve because it was a product like office supplies. It was the exact same thing from each bidder and exact same price,
Yes.
delivery terms and everything. It was a mirror image. And I think we resolved that with the flip of a coin.
Okay.
Had the parties present, and unfortunately, the coin didn't land on its side. It landed with heads or tails up, and that's how it was done. But that, whatever the committee comes up with, is fine. Any questions for finance? Hearing none, we'll move on. Personnel has a matter involving the pension refunds and rollovers. That's a monthly event. Chairman Pickering.
Yes, thank you, Mac. It is a monthly event. This is a situation where people who leave employment can choose to take the contributions that they've made towards their pensions and roll them over into some other kind of account or take it directly if they wish. We have several individuals who routinely have done this, and this is nothing more than another monthly approval. This has been put together by Shelley Jasper, our personnel director, and it's approved by she and I believe the personnel committee as well.
Are you making a motion then for the approval of the monthly pension refunds and rollovers?
Yes.
I'll support it.
Who's that, Ballmer?
Supported, moved by Chickering, supported by Volrath. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chickering,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Ballrat,
Yes.
3 yeas.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Chair.
Thank you. Anyone have a report that they want to make? Any board member?
Commissioner Scott, I would just like to let the entire board know that Today at 2:15, we have the broadband brain trust meeting. And that's it so far.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Ezra.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chair, this is, oh, go
Yes,
ahead,
Carrie?
Jim.
Commissioner Freeling, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna give a brief update to this board on the broadband discussion that we had. I think the last time that we met, the group of us had not given an update to the full board. So I just wanted to let you know that things are moving along with our discussions with Merit. One thing that was of a point of interest is that Merit has actually approved contracting with a gentleman named Ben Feynman, who is the president of Michigan Broadband Cooperative, which is really encouraging. He has done a lot for some of the different initiatives here in the state of Michigan for rural broadband. We're also working with Merit to solidify some ideas on Wi-Fi hotspots for K through 12 instruction. The point of contact at Southwest Michigan Planning Commission for that is Chris Martin. They're asking that if anybody has any school contacts, that you either go through our administrator to give that information to Brian, or also to reach out to Chris Martin at Southwestern Michigan Planning Commission. We've had some discussions regarding fiber conduit and some different ideas that have been tossed around. And lastly, we spoke about Mercury Wireless, which is one of the companies that received funding through the USDA Reconnect grant funding program, and what that might mean for Berrien County. We don't really have a whole lot of information on that, but I did just want to give a brief overview to this board of what had been discussed for broadband, and things are moving forward. Thank you.
Carrie. Anyone else have anything?
Mr.
We
Chairman.
have a Commissioner report, Jim?
Yeah, Commissioner Curran here. Everyone should have received the Sheriff's Department report within the last couple days. Please take a moment and review that. I think you'll see there are a number of additional duties that we have placed on the Sheriff's Department, and I think they're doing an excellent job, and I think we need to appreciate the job that they are doing. This second comment I have is since we did approve the staff complement change for the Health Department, instead of maxing out the Napier Avenue building, may I suggest you look at the South County building? The infrastructure and the space is there, and we would love to have you down here. That's my comment.
Thanks, Jim. I think that was one of the things that was referenced in that email last night, the email exchange between the administrator and public health officer, because we do have some extra space in Niles. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Yes,
Scott,
sir.
I forgot to add a note of importance. Tuesday, we had the LRSB specific actual costs meeting. Once again, the county was turned down for any and all of the specific actual costs that we put in for. At least I was able to get an up and down vote on the prosecutorial, the judicial, and the sheriff's department. And that failed by 3-2. The 911 specific actual costs didn't even get a vote. And I made a motion to approve, and it couldn't get a second, so it died. So once again, the tribe has decided that some of our county specific actual costs are basically not that they don't want to approve them, and it takes all 5 to approve. So just wanted to put that out there so everybody knew.
Who's the chair of the Pokagon band these days?
That's Matt Weesaw, and he was actually there on the board because Steve Winchester is the primary representative for the tribe. And Steve Winchester had a prior board meeting of another board that he had to sit on. So Matt Weesaw, the tribal chair, was the alternate. So he sat in, so.
How did he vote?
Oh, absolutely not. Nothing. No, nothing more for the county. We don't need, as a matter of fact, I believe the argument is, since we already have a judicial system in place, we already have a prosecutorial people in place, and we have a fully functioning jail that is in place, whether or not it receives any inmates at the jail. The prosecutor has to prosecute those individuals, and the judges have to hear the cases. The tribe's view is they are already there doing their job, so why should we have to pay extra? I even made the compliment and the argument for the fact that how many of the people who are being charged for crimes on tribal property and who are housed in the jail that we have to feed and medical, and then how many of those people then use county services such as indigent defense to represent them. Now, had they not committed the crime, they wouldn't be in jail. They wouldn't need, and they wouldn't need the prosecutor's office, and they wouldn't need the judges. So I see all of that as a direct cost involved with the county for specific costs. It's just not going to work out that way. The tribe doesn't believe that. So.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
Anyone else? Because of the ongoing technical challenges, we are not directly able to pull the comments from the public because we're now, well, before we get there, we have the administrator, if he wants to make a report, and then we'll figure out what to do with general public comments. We may have to pull them in through the telephone. Brian?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, just a quick shout out to the county crews for their good work this week during the storm cleanup. Buildings and grounds were working actively. We had some buildings go down without power. Road department was out cleaning up limbs and down trees. 911 Sheriff's Department were handling a variety of phone calls. But the IS department has done a really great job. They lost battery backups to the mainframe at the court. And as we sat here today, just in the last half hour, they were able to get all of those batteries back up and running. So nice work by Chris and his team. The Parks Department, just so this board is aware, this week the Silver Beach Lifeguards will wrap up their summer service, and Jill Adams sent me a reminder that those young people did an excellent job this summer. So just wanted to pass along a thank you to them. Brian Bailey and Jill Adams both spent quite a bit of time with me last week. We took a walking tour of the Water Elite property that's being acquired through the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund. Really beautiful piece of property. And you got two very impressive team members there with Brian and Jill. And then lastly, we have a clerk sitting in this back corner who has been incredibly busy getting us through the August primary. So thank you to our clerk and all of the people that she works with to make elections run. Mr. Chair, those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Brian?
This is Commissioner Scott. I happened to notice something. Did some of the other county commissioners also notice? But I have noticed that especially when Mamie Yarborough was giving her finance report, that all of a sudden she started to break up in the audio. And at the same time, you could hear people talking in the large conference room. So I'm wondering if that is one of the problems that we're experiencing. You might want to ask Mr. Swihart whether or not that could possibly be it. Because as Mamie's talking on Zoom, I could hear her fine until somebody in the conference room was talking, and then she got all garbled.
Okay.
Just,
So
I don't know if anybody else recognized that or saw that, but I noticed it.
We do try to mute the large conference room when somebody else is speaking on Zoom. But if other people have their microphones open at well at the same time, it's gonna pick up any other excess or extra noise. So we do try to do that if we can.
Okay. That's all I had. I just noticed that, so.
Okay. General public comments. We're going to try to be resourceful and innovative and see if we can somehow retrieve those and share them with everyone.
May I make a request? Mamie Yarbrough.
Yes, ma'am.
Clerk Tyler, could you give me a copy of those numbers that you read to us about the election?
The numbers of how many voted and everything?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send them in an email.
And yeah, to my Comcast address.
Or Comcast email. Or personal email.
Oh, okay. Understand. Gotcha.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman, for letting me.
Are you ready?
Okay, these are the public comments that we're going to try to get some audio that'll be picked up by the microphone here in front of me, and hopefully everyone can hear.
Okay, Amy, would you please read the people that spoke in the chat box, give their name, their municipality, and what their comment was, please?
I have Eric Lester. I'm not sure of his municipality. He wanted to say thanks for the good invocation, Commissioner Harrison.
St. Joseph.
St. Joseph Township.
St. Joseph Township.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Where's Tony Benhart?
Tony Benhart, DeSoto's Township.
The next I have is Tony Benhart with Sodas Township. I wonder, with all of the trees on the roads and they are being pushed into the ditches with loaders, are those going to be cut up and removed or just left there to rot? If they are, those are a liability hazard to the public if they should run into the ditch. This policy was also started by the former manager, and wonder if this is going to continue. The next comment is Eric Lester. Please thank Clerk Tyler for her excellent and thorough report. I hope it will be posted online and published in the Herald Palladium. From Eric Lester, St. Joseph Township.
Thank you.
The next comment is Eric Lester, St. Joseph Township. Contact tracing is long established an essential part of public health. The next comment, Tony Benhart, Sodas Township. Also, what kind of an issue will there be with drainage in the future or mowing with the brush in the ditches? This started with the past manager with this between the white lines of intermittence. The next comment, Eric Lester, St. Joseph Township. Will the broadband trust meeting be available to the public? The next comment, Tony Benhart. Something of interest, the new monopole towers that are being placed by the I&M. They are a fiber cable being placed at the very top of those towers. and will be used by I&M and government from my understanding. That ends the public comment.
Thank you, Amy, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy. Was everyone able to hear those?
Yes.
All right. Other business? Anyone have any other business? Hearing none, announcements and reminders. Our administrator will be gone Monday and Tuesday of next week. The other ones you can see on the agenda about the PHS virtual meeting tomorrow afternoon, and then the meetings next week. Finance next Thursday at 9, our board meeting 10:30, our meetings for the rest of the month 10:30 and on Zoom. We have a night meeting in September, the second Thursday, which had been set up, of course, before all the virus spread around the country. I'm assuming the governor will continue to restrict us in terms of how we do things. So, is there an agreement that we would move that meeting on September 10 from the evening to 10:30 in the morning, do it here in the admin building, and do it virtually for those who aren't interested in coming in? Is that all right?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I would like to see, with the COVID issues and some of the issues that we are having now in the county, I think it is imperative that we speak directly to our constituents, and I would like to see us, if nothing else, to make a effort to do at least one night meeting for the county. I think we would probably get a lot of people who would participate, other than the few that usually participate at 10:30. Just my opinion. That's all.
All right. Are you talking about the 10th of September?
Yes.
So you want to keep that meeting as a night meeting?
I would keep it as a night meeting and do a Zoom and advertise it as such. And I think we would get a lot of people that would come in because at that point in time, they would be off work. And I think it's more that our constituents need to see exactly what we do and how we do it. And there will probably be a lot more than just the standard 2 or 3 or 4 that come at 10:30.
Anyone else have
either way. I'm good either way, but
All right. Understood. Anyone else have anything to say about that?
I agree. And our time had gotten to be 6 p.m. when we did the night meetings. I think that would be a good idea.
Well, why don't we leave it on right now for a night meeting? We have time. And if we decide we need to change it to a 10:30 a.m. meeting, we have plenty of room to do that. But for now, it'll stay where it is, based on those persuasive and cogent statements by Commissioners Scott and Yarborough.
It'll be here though, Matt, instead of on the road. Here.
It'd be here though, be a
Yes.
virtual meeting here, not the road show that we would normally do when we have night meetings going
Yeah.
around the county.
yes.
So, okay. One other thing is to meetings. We currently are scheduled to meet on Thursday, the 3rd of September. And I know that the staff here in the admin building would be loath to have us cancel that meeting. Bumping up against the holiday weekend and all. And we don't have to do anything right now today, but putting it out there for your consideration. If we don't have any major business to do that first week of September, I would be inclined to cancel it. cancel the meeting on the 3rd. But again, we don't have to do anything now. We have another week
I'm
to
gonna
make
say,
that call. Pardon me?
so moved.
Well, let's wait a week, and if we feel that way next Thursday, then that one will be canceled,
Okay,
okay?
yep.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the cause? Hearing nothing, we stand adjourned to Thursday next at 10:30 a.m. Wish you all a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
Great weekend.
Annette,
Yeah.
before you shut us off, could I have you keep Meeks and Hugo for just a second?
I'm right here looking at you, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Okay.
How about Chris? He's still there?
I'll go. How do you go?
Is Chris gone?
We'll call her.
Mike's still here too. Okay. I didn't fully understand the trying to set up the administration meeting. When do you want to do that? Annette or Brian, somebody? Where did Annette go? Well,
I
okay.
thought it was Hugo was going for Wednesday.
Yeah, I
I
saw.
can't make Wednesday, but Thursday I can make after the meeting.
Okay, so you want to physically come in on Thursday?
Yeah, that's the choice everybody makes.
And-
We can do a visit anytime if we can't all do it together.
Okay. Now, Don, how are you on?
I was kind of confused. I had to call in to Annette on this. She got a message to get back because I was kind of confused about the meeting. I didn't know if it was directed at me.
Well, that's
but it didn't mention you either, Joe.
okay.
So I'm okay whenever the other two can meet, or we can, so we can all meet. I'm
So-
okay with that. Just come up with a time.
Okay, so next Thursday, after our regular Board of Commissioners meeting, you and Mike are available.
Yep.
I know.
Okay. And I'll just have to check with Chris.
Yep.
And Brian, are you still there?
No, he's still here.
I see.
See ya. Okay, does that, Annette, maybe you could help me out. Was Chris available Thursday or not?
I'm not sure about the in-person thing, but he was available to meet at the 9 o'clock when we were gonna do the original, put you in where finance normally is. So I don't have any other thing from him besides that.
Okay, well, then I guess for right now, why don't you schedule it for Thursday after our meeting? So at least we've got me, Don, and Mike, and send that to Chris and see if he can make it then. Is that okay?
Yes, we will try to do that.
Well,
Okay.
Annette, I want to say something. You don't have to call me back because it's just finished just now. Okay, thank you, Jim.
Okay, then Annette, you plan on the three of us physically being there on Thursday then,
Correct.
okay? Great. And then we will, then we'll go from admin over to the courthouse then, Brian?
Yeah, so the intent is to have the admin committee take a brief tour of the Friend of the Court's office. I'll work with Tom Watson and Todd Johnson to make sure that those two guys are ready. We will go from this building over to the court, take a brief tour. We'll be having a conversation about some physical changes to that office, trying to generate some more space for the workers. If the group has time and an interest, I can also set up a brief tour of the jail construction. It's completely up to you all. If that's something you'd like to see, we can make it happen. But if you're pressed for time, that's not a problem.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. Okay.
As long as
That's the plan.
Look like you drug into it.
Okay,
We're good?
yep, then I think we're good in that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're still there? So, Friday, August 14th, still is a PHSC meeting.
I'm still live. Yeah. I can't shut off, so just, I can't